Thank you, Yolanda. Since we are very few around, maybe we can begin by saying who we are and why we are here. And the participants can just say where they are from. So I am Françoise Genova. I am the co-chair of RDA France and co-chair of the Regional Advisory Board of RDA. And this is why I have participated in organizing this session, because national data services are really important for the regional nodes of the RDA. Rosie.
Thanks, Francois. So I'm Rosie Hicks. I'm the Chief Executive of the Australian Research Data Commons, and I'm also co-chair of the RDA Regional Advisory Board with Francois, but I have my L plates on still. So learning, Francois, thank you.
So Mikiko.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mikiko Tanifuji from National Institute of Informatics in Japan, located in Tokyo. I just recently joined to the RDA Council as a member. And I'm very much looking forward to even make a further commitment to RDA as much as possible. I'm looking forward to join this session today. Thanks.
Thank you, Gilles.
Hello, everyone. I am Gilles from France. I'm working in the French Ministry for Higher Education and Research, and I am coordinating the French National Data Service ecosystem for opening, sharing research data, which is called Recherche Data Gouv.
Federico.
Thank you very much. I'm Federico Cetrangolo. I am the administrative manager of La Referencia. As a disclaimer, Lautaro Matas is the executive director of La Referencia. He's more in the field of the developments, technical developments of La Referencia. We had a presentation last week. I know it's recorded, so for more specific developments, you can go. I will try my best, but you can go to the presentation. He's in Spain, so it's too late for him. And this week I had the pleasure of meeting in person to Hilary, the Secretary General of RDA, that he's traveling along all the region. So I meet her, I think, last Friday. Was a great pleasure for us.
Yes, Hilary is doing a grand tour in Latin America by these days. Mingfang.
Good day, everyone. I'm Mingfang Wu, working for Australia Research Data Commons. Ross here is my boss. I'm product manager of two of ARDC's and data or information surveys, Research Data Australia, that's the national research data repository of the service offered by ARDC, and also new service in making. We just released that Research Link Australia is another significant service we offer, national service we offer, yeah. And also I co-chair a couple of research data alliance interest group. One interest group is data discovery paradigms. We have several recommendations for repositories, how to improve data discovery from the end user's point of view. So that could be relevant here. And also my colleagues trying to start another interest group from RDA called Uptake and the Impact of Digital Research Infrastructure. And I think Francois spoke in other session. So my colleagues also ask me to promote that interest group and yeah, and I also learn what we discuss here. Sorry for the long rambling. Yeah, that's all from me.
You're on mute. Yeah.
Yes, we will hear from everybody around because the other people have a presentation, so it's good people know who you are. Thank you for being with us. So it opens a bit of a discussion compared to what we would have done without you. So just to remind you a bit of I don't have a presentation slide, but the idea was to use the notes to show the agenda, to encourage people to go to register in the notes, but with this small audience, it's a bit different. So the idea, the starting point of this meeting has been that there used to be a national data service interest group in the RDA, an early interest group, but it stopped working, it stopped being active some years ago, and people who were active in that moved towards the Global Open Research Commons interest group and working group. Basically, I think it was one main reason for the fact that the National Data Service interest group became inactive. So many things happened since then, and we thought the starting point was a discussion between Gilles and I in France. We thought it would be interesting to propose to have again a specific group about national data services, and we proposed the idea as a BoF to a previous plenary, but we were told it's too French. And so we asked colleagues from around the world to show up and to present their national data services. So we certainly do not cover the wealth of existing national data services. In the previous session, people began to write a list of the possible liaison we should establish to propose these people to join the interest group if we begin the interest group again, and there are probably additional ones. And so this is why we have a small subset of possible contributors who have been invited to participate in the organization of this session. So, and we have in the organization of a session, Australia, Canada, France, Japan, and South Africa. And we also proposed colleagues from La Referencia to join the meeting. It's different. La Referencia is a coordination at the regional level, and it's different from the national data services. But we know that the national data services have to interface with their regional coordination, if there is one, the regional research commons, when there is one. For instance, in Europe, it's the European Open EOSC Science Cloud, and there is also a regional initiative in Africa. And so it was good to have colleagues from Latin America to present their regional, how they organize things at the regional level. And it showed that it's important to have also a liaison with the regional coordinations in the possible interest group we want to set up. So the agenda is that we have small set of lightning talks, which are supposed to be short so that we have a bit of time to discuss after that. Today, our colleagues from Canada and South Africa cannot be with us, but they presented last time. You can find their presentations in the recording. And the slides are also online. We will have a slide from Rosie in just after the meeting, but now you will see them. And there are the slides from La Referencia are also linked here. So we will have these lightning talks, and there was predefined set of questions. And then the discussion is there an interest in restarting the national data services? What would be the objectives if we start it again? And who is willing to contribute? So we began to discuss this last time, and it can be taken as a starting point at some point, not now, but when we discuss today. So, any question at this time? Seems to be all clear. So we begin with Rosie, Australia.
Let's get this going. Do I get a thumbs up there?
Yes, go on.
Thank you. Yeah, good. All right. So although I wasn't in the last session, I did have the opportunity to watch the recording. And if there is one word that comes through, and in fact, I think it's said several times, it's diversity. It's when we're looking at the different national data services, what we have in one country is interpreted very, very different in another. So with that mindset, I'm giving you the flavour of what we're, for the purposes of this morning, considering to be Australia's national data service. So that's the positioning of this. One of the things that we do in Australia is we begin our presentations with an acknowledgement of country, and that's an acknowledgement of the traditional custodians of the land that we're joining you from today. And one of the things we do is we recognise the land that we're on. So for me, it's the Gumbaynggirr people. And I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Okay, so I'm going to step back by very, very simply talking about the purpose of the ARDC. And we say it's to provide Australian researchers with competitive advantage through data. And the key word there is obviously data, but we do this for the researchers. Our mission, every word in that mission is chosen very, very carefully. Obviously, accelerating research and innovation is pretty straightforward, but by driving excellence, it means that it's not just us doing it. We're working with others to drive that excellence. And it's a broad scope, being concerned with the creation, the analysis, and the retention of high quality data assets. We use our mission on a daily basis to think about what we should and we shouldn't be doing. So it does anchor us. That and our values. Play bingo with our values, don't we, Mingfang? So I think for the international conversation, it's important to think about what we mean when we talk about a research data commons. For us, it encompasses much more than just being a portal or a platform for access to data. Critically, when we talk about supporting a research data commons, we've got to have the people supported in the mix. We've got to consider skills, storage hardware, obviously, that's moving in the commodity space, but we need it there. The compute capability, the models and platforms we use, and then finally the data itself. So all of those components are in spec or in scope for the ARDC when we talk about a research data commons. And I think this is one of the things that varies internationally, and I respect that it varies, but do say that's what it needs to be here in Australia, including the people, most importantly. So I am, in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the things that are top of mind for us, looking at our current strategy. So you can see there at the top, our first strategic driver, providing researchers with competitive advantage through data. And how do we do that? We do that by delivering leading edge digital research infrastructure. And for the next 18 months, we've got 4 focus areas. The thematic research data commons, and I'm going to spend a little bit of this time unpacking those because I think they're going to be the part that's most different. We run the National Nectar Research Cloud, the National Information Infrastructure. Ming Fang is heavily involved and has already mentioned Research Data Alliance. I'll flag a few more of those. And again, underpinned by skills across the sector. And to deliver on this strategy, it's about developing ourselves, the ARDC, to be a hub of expertise, a recognised hub of expertise within Australia, and nurturing partnerships with our stakeholders. So if there was one slide I got to talk to ever, it would be this slide. It tells you what we're focusing on. But a thematic research data commons, what does that mean? It means that we're bringing together those elements I introduced above, the 6 different elements, and we're considering what's required to meet the needs of a particular research community. So the People Research Data Commons is looking at health and medical data. No surprises for guessing planet, earth and environmental. And the final one we have at the moment, the humanities, arts, social sciences and indigenous research data commons. So those are the 3. We understand that we're probably covering between 70 and 75% of researchers supported by nationally competitive grants. So it's not everyone. And in fact, I think there are some really significant gaps. We're not supporting heavy engineering, construction, a lot of the opportunities for translation to industry. And I do hope that we'll have a path to expand in that space in later years. But right now, we've got the 3 thematic research data commons. And the way that these have been put together is absolutely underpinned by an extensive consultation with the research community and with stakeholders that has led to a co-design process. So it isn't an open call for proposals. It isn't people competing for funds to build research infrastructure. It's turning that around and saying very, very clearly, we need to collaborate on research infrastructure, compete on research. Right, so this is truly looking at creating a commons. I'm going to drill down on the People RDC for this morning. There's other material. I'll put a slide on Planet and HAS in the pack when I upload it. So for the consultation for the People RDC, we didn't go to the research community with a blank sheet of paper. We went out for the consultation with a consideration of what we thought were the key challenges. Did the same for the other 2 as well. And by working with the research community, we were able to adjust and then confirm the challenges that we'd identified, and then understand more about the prioritization for researchers. So for health and medical research, I don't think these things are going to surprise you. Data discovery, secure data access, being able to integrate data, and then having the tools for advanced analysis. What did surprise us at the time was the prioritization, and the advanced analysis was a bit lower than we expected. But the feedback from the community was until you have that secure access to the right data and you can integrate it, you can forget doing your analysis. So it was that prioritization that came through. And you can see just some examples here. When we have appropriate secure data access, here's an example of the types of longitudinal studies that can be undertaken. And then similar for Planet and for HAS and Indigenous. So for each, we've got between 4 to 6 different focus areas, a set of activities under each of those focus areas, and then projects. For ARDC, we're in a good funding position at the moment, and we're looking at a 5-year plan for these. So they're well underway, and they're funded through to June 2028 at the moment. But the system in Australia for federal funding of research infrastructure is moving to a relatively stable place. I hope I'm not going to regret these words, but we expect a roadmap in 2026 and a new funding pathway after 2028. So that's pretty solid. Our service, so I've spoken about the thematic RDCs. I think that's most different. In looking at the services, these are things that are probably familiar to you, the research vocabularies. I've got a bit of screen arranging. Yes, it says Research Data Australia for finding research, the Nectar Cloud. We now also have Health Data Australia, which is the platform we've created for guiding that process, identifying and requesting access to health and medical research data. And the other one that Ming Fang mentioned was Research Link Australia, and that went live with the minimum viable product just this week. So I couldn't find the slide on that one this morning, but never mind. Persistent identifiers, I think this is another really key area for that international and global conversation. So the Nectar Research Cloud, federated, OpenStack architecture across Australia brings us a whole wealth of cybersecurity challenges in an increasingly complex environment to deal with. The persistent identifier strategy, a national strategy for this, we released in February. And we've previously commissioned a cost-benefit analysis back in late 2022, that was published. We were able to say to stakeholders, if we could, as a country, just get widespread adoption of 5 persistent identifiers, we would be in a position to save 38,000 hours of researchers' time per year, $24 million in direct funding, $80 million in indirect. Those figures were 2022. The cost of living has gone crazy since 2022. It's all gone out the window. So the savings, if we could get the uptake of these identifiers, are very, very significant. And we're now advancing that agenda aggressively, working with different stakeholder groups, with the funders, with the universities, and then, of course, with ourselves and the Australian Access Federation to make sure we have the national infrastructure to provide those persistent identifiers. So this is a conversation very much top of mind for Australia at the moment. Indeed, we believe globally we're co-hosting PIDFest in a couple of weeks' time in Prague. It is a sellout. We have an embarrassing waiting list of highly influential people, and we're trying to think how we can fit them into the space. And I'm thinking, here, have my ticket. I don't know what, I'll stream from the hotel room or something. Anyway, so very, very timely. Skills. Not only for ARDC, but right the way across research infrastructure, digital skills are critical. I think there's a lot of time where people don't focus on the right sort of skills and start mixing them up with general, rounded person. Can you do project management? Are you financially literate? That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the skills required to gain competitive advantage through data. And so we're busy trying to get that positioning appropriately set in Australia. And this is my last slide here, Francois, don't panic. The roadmap that we have will be informed by a national digital research infrastructure strategy. A draft was circulated prior to Christmas, and we're expecting the final document soon. I mean, I don't know how many presentations Francois has had to see this slide. We've been waiting forever for the final strategy, but we're looking at things such as dot point 3 really resonate with us, consistent in standards for data collection, curation, and access. That's really, really the, as they say in England, the meat and potatoes for the Research Data Alliance. So we're pleased with that positioning. International Data Week, this is your chance to come and join us in sunny Brisbane, October next year. Mark the date in your diaries. There we go. Thanks, Francois.
Thanks to you, Rosie. So I think we can go. If you have questions, maybe we can have the questions at the end. And if you want to keep them in mind, you can write them in the chat, so you don't forget. Gilles, if we go in alphabetical order of the countries.
Okay, let me share my slides. Should be fine. And now, okay. Is that okay?
It's okay, no problem.
So, I will talk, I don't know if I should say today, tonight, this morning, or this night, but whatever. I will talk to you about the French National Data Service, which is called Recherche Data Gouv, and which we describe as an ecosystem for sharing and opening research data. So just to start with, it actually starts with an ambition which is set in the French law starting from 2016. That says that we should open all research products and methods following the as open as possible, as closed as necessary paradigm. And this concerns, of course, publications, data, and source codes. So it's been set up in the first, as I said, in 2016 in Loi pour une République numérique, so law for a numeric republic, or whatever you call it in English. And it's been reinforced by different, the two successive open science national plans, which have been out in 2018 and 2021. The objective being a more cumulative, robust, and reproducible science, which should be actually transparent and accessible to all. So this is quite important to figure out the starting point of this ecosystem, is that it's really been set up with a political intention behind, and it's really supported at political level in France. So the second plan for open science, which was out in 2021, has a very specific objective, which is to create this ecosystem called Recherche Data Gouv, to actually provide a sovereign storage and signposting for research data, and a range of support for researchers, around support services for researchers. So it's not just about technical services, but also the support and all the support that can be offered to researchers, which is quite important. So in terms of aims, of course, the idea was to provide a solution where there were no other solution to share the data, so a kind of fallback solution, make support a central element of the system, and also recognize the existing initiatives, considering that there were many communities in France that didn't wait for this Recherche Data Gouv ecosystem to be born, to do something. The idea was not to reinvent the wheel and just not to do something different and break everything that was already working, but actually to federate and say, okay, you do some interesting stuff, let's do this together in this global ecosystem. So this has two pillars. The first is a network of support services, and the second is an actual technical sovereign solution for depositing and publishing and reporting data. So the network of support services is here to raise awareness, but also to train, to support, to help researchers deal with their data and manage their data all throughout the data life cycle, especially in the opening publishing part, but also in more earlier phases as well. And the sovereign solution itself is a national research data platform, under the form of a repository and a data registry. Technically, it's a Dataverse repository which is being used, and which is a generic and complementary to all the thematic repositories we already have in France, and internationally our community use a set of thematic repositories for the research data. The idea is not to replace that, but also to be to provide another solution for those that don't have obvious thematic repositories to deposit their data. It's also an alternative to publishing on commercial platform or on platforms that do not meet criteria of, well, trustworthiness criteria. Our objective also is to become a service at the regional level, European scale, so a service of a European Open Science Cloud. This is a very synthetic and global view of the ecosystem. We've got the four modules which are on the top of the schema are the support ecosystem, and the two which are at the bottom are the technical data platform. So the support ecosystem is structured with different modules. We have data management clusters, which are geographically located. They are nodes located at the university level most of the time, and the different big university centers in big cities in France. And they are local people helping local researchers to do stuff with their data, to make it short. All kind of data issues, but at the local level. Now, if we cross the schema, we've got thematic reference centers, which work nationally, but on a given specific scientific field. So we've got 6 of them. They are at the moment handled by research infrastructures which already have a mandate for this discipline, for their discipline in France, and already provided such services before. So the 6 are for life science, humanities. We've got 2 in humanities. We've got in earth science. We've got in biodiversity and in astronomy. It's not an exhaustive landscape. We don't cover every discipline with that. But as I said, the idea is actually to recognize an expertise which was already given before Recherche Data Gouv was created, and just to integrate with them. And we are now in the process of expanding this. That's why there's a little plus in here. So we've got 6, and we're in the process of reaching out to extend this to other disciplines. We've also got resource centers, which provide material and different type of support to the other modules. For example, tools for handling data management plans, or tools for building e-training or stuff like that. They also act nationally. We've got institutional reference centers, which are on the same model as the thematic reference center. They are a recognition of some institution in France that already provided such support before Recherche Data Gouv was created. So it's a way to interact with those different institutions and establishments and organizations. And all of this collaborates in a big kind of national network of support. This is in addition to the data repository and data registry. As I said, the data repository is a Dataverse instance, which is generic and on which we can have different kind of collections based on institution, based on different projects and so on. And the data registry, which is a project which is still ongoing, the idea being to find and harvest data from different kind of generic and thematic repositories. So the place that this ecosystem has in the international landscape is, for the moment, mostly at the European level. As I said, there is an ambition to become a service of a European Open Science Cloud on 2 aspects. So on the repository aspects, with the idea to join and co-construct the European network of trustworthy repositories, which is currently being submitted as a project at the European level to build this service with colleagues from other countries. And of course, to work beyond our national borders on cross-disciplinary subjects. And there is also the support aspect, which is quite important to us. And there is a project running at the moment at the EOSC level, which is called Skills for EOSC, which brings different countries together to build and harmonize kind of skills, competences for opening data, for fair data, and so on, and for open science in general. And there is a model of national competence centers, which is being built as part of this project. And Recherche Data Gouv has recently joined the scheme as being the first break for the French National Competence Center. The ambition here is to share, of course, best practices at continental level and beyond, the reason for us to be in this session today. So, which leads me to the reason why we would like to start the National Data Service Interest Group. First thing is because of networking, of course. It's always good to share ideas, to share experience, to see the diversity of the different national data services. Now, this diversity that we've already seen in the first session, and we can see again with thanks to the presentation, to your presentation, Rosie, and to the ones that will come next, to actually better understand this diversity and learn from it, because diversity has a reason. It's just like in nature, when things are not diverse just for the sake of it. It's because there's a reason. It's always interesting to learn why things have developed a certain way. And of course, there's the need and an interest for us to identify best practices and to link with relevant RDA groups that could be of interest for us, and of course, recommendation and outputs that we could use. And I'm done.
Thank you very much. Now we go to Japan. Mikiko?
So again, hello everyone.
It's
I'm-
in presenters mode. Can you?
Okay.
It can stay that way, but if you can put
How
it.
about this?
Yes, that's good. Thank
Right?
you. Yes.
Okay. So I attempt to do fit into in 10 minutes for today, really to focus on about this launching of interest group. So my input from National Data Service in Japan is like this. Update in Japan, and almost all services for e-infrastructure for research is coordinated by Minister of Science Culture under the government of Japan Cabinet Office. And these colored parts are really directly supported by the government. And the gray one, like research data community or industry community commitment, is either by people or by other minister in economy. And this is a current update, and I'm sure that most of the aspects or activities are already almost the same as other countries. And our position as NII is commitment to infrastructure, but no longer just the infrastructure. We really heavily committed to academic community. And there's a big project launch 10 years project for research data ecosystem for data-driven science, is because data-driven science is one of the essential interest and also movement in science. And NII do commit to international collaboration and also working together with RDA, like GOLC, and also repository community core, And we all currently heavily working, feels like a nightmare, really. It's recording, so I shouldn't. It's a bright future, 2025, we are heading to. From next year, all public funded, specific public funded research becomes mandatory. No embargo, immediate open access that everybody have to do. So it's a quite heavy discussion between the government side and science side and infrastructure side, how it is going to do it. And we are all working is not only NII, but also university libraries and the research community. That's why our commitment to academic community is very important. So I just giving you a few comments that institutional repository status is that nearly 90% is joined to a shared operating repository system run by NII to economize for each university, don't need to worry about update the system, make a better user interface, and etc. And on the other hand, subject repositories is born by researchers' initiation for research. And particularly these days, movement is to some databases collaborating as a concept of repository and then integrated search engine implemented so that they can find easier between their own databases together with others. And academic committee, one of significant improvement is the core facilities in Japan, which I'm going to mention next slide, is facing to accumulation of experimental data. And naturally, they're talking about common metadata. We want to customize, but if you do customize and the internet search engine need to be customized, etc., etc. So ongoing day-to-day issues that they're facing to. So our role as a position to provide national data services, we coordinate between core facility such as, I'm sure that you don't read it, but there are a number of universities and partners launch a core facility support program with a JSD sponsorship. And we, NII, do support this development research data ecosystem. And mainly, we quite foster use cases. And through these use cases, we reach to each core facilities because people facing to issues that I introduced. And some of issue can be discussed on GOG, and some issues need to discuss with other countries, same community, by researchers between research community. So like a customer's metadata, PITS issues, and most of the scientists are not interested to make IDs to global IDs. They are quite happy to use a local IDs so that they can communicate already enough. However, if you want to do more favorable services for science, then they need to be aware of then what we have to do for global communicatable, accessible IDs. So this is just an example, but through my own experiences with, for example, INILIA in France, that we have a research collaboration scheme, and we're talking about software heritage project. And when we communicate with researchers at NII who's experts in computer science and say, would you like to join this? And they said, first, why? I'm quite happy where we are, but the end of your project, how about to make your long-term, even after your lifetime, to keep in the right way for that global people can easily to find it and use it, and also may find collaborators, and then they would say, well, I already have a community platform, which is GitHub. So that sort of a local level discussion to the very international level discussion as a in the concept of national data services, I found it quite a little bit difficult to find how to approach this issue. So this is what we provide, and this is quite noisy slide, so I just mark that we provide data management and data publication and data discovery as 3 pillars. This is a core set to everyone can use if they wish. And then we added data curation service. This has come from researchers, because once they're talking about sharing data and they need to give information about the data, but normally they don't want to use the time to provide additional data. So how to make it happen, how to automate it, how to assistant system will be useful. And then once we're talking about data creation, and then we realize that we need a data governance and also data provenance, so that we use the data with the FAIR principle, and then people can understand when they discover the data sets, okay, so this data is created and used in this manner and published in articles, and so that I can understand about the data that somebody else provided. And yes, code package for reuse the data, and the safe issue and the training issues are quite important pillars. And we distributed this as a services to universities and research institutes in Japan. So what we can be seen from recent movement is that the if I may, between the Europe services in Europe and the services we provide in Japan, I think I can see that some layer start like this, and these almost all layers are already exist in RDA activities. And maybe when we look at sort of national level as a service, maybe pick one or even higher level of viewpoint will be useful, because we are quite aware of that the national level and regional or domain level cooperation is quite challenging. And every day we find a new approach, and it will be good to share what we found, what practices we found it useful. So I think that will be all from me to input today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A lot of things to think about in your talks. Federico, we go to the regional level, thanks to you.
Great.
So,
I will share my
Mikiko,
screen.
yes, Mikiko, I think you can unshare your screen.
Sorry, my Zoom. Here we go.
Thank you. Go on, Federico.
I think you're seeing well.
I think you have to go in presentation mode.
I'm on presentation mode. Maybe there's a little later. I don't know if
we can go that way if it's okay with you. I think you can go.
Okay. Well, as I said, I'm Federico Cetrángulo. I am the administrative manager of La Referencia. La Referencia is a Latin American regional network of open science, and we were founded on an agreement of government from the region. And in 2020, Spain was added to La Referencia. I will give a brief view of La Referencia in general. As Francois said, it's not a national service itself, but it's a group of national institutions working together toward open science goals. La Referencia was founded 12 years ago through the signing of a cooperation agreement as a result of a project financed by the Inter-American Development Bank and was led by Red Clara, that is the regional research and education network. The countries that you are watching in the screen are the members of La Referencia. As you can see, there are a lot of Latin American countries, but they are not all the countries, and this is one scope of us to integrate all the countries and there is also Spain. We have there's a natural cooperation and language cooperation between Spain and our region. So as I said before, was added to the network 4 years ago. I will focus briefly in three aspects, and two aspects that I think they are interesting for a regional perspective and in this discussion. One is regarding the policies and one regarding the infrastructure. Regarding the policies, La Referencia has emerged as a network to discuss open science policies and promote the visibility of scientific production from Latin America and Spain, especially that funded by public funds. We are focusing on reducing gaps between countries. It's very heterogeneous region with countries that are more advanced than others. Maybe you know the example of Brazil. Brazil is quite advanced than other countries. So one of the goals is reducing that gap, avoiding the duplication of effort and promoting.
Sorry, Federico, I think we are in the next slide. We only see your opening slide for the moment.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm seeing the next slide. Maybe
you are still on that slide. Okay, sorry. Because
now you're seeing the country slides, or are seeing
no, we don't see it. This is why we only see the National Data Service BoF. This is why I sorry to interrupt you, but
no, one second. I will try to.
We can, we can follow on our screens because your talk is online, it's linked from the notes, so we can follow on our screen. It can be easier.
Maybe.
I think you are on the second or third slide, but yes, now it works. Very good.
Nice work. Great.
Yes.
Great. So as I said, I was talking about the first aspect, that it was the policies, and the second aspect that I wanted to focus is about infrastructure. For over a decade, La Referencia has worked on development, technical solutions and value-added services. We create and consolidated a federated system for aggregation research results aligned with international standards. And we collaborate in the open science ecosystem through international projects involving Latin America, and the European Union and Africa recently. And we have an active participation in COAR, and also we had a strong collaboration with OpenAir. Now we are having a strong collaboration with RDA. As I said before, Hillary is focusing a lot in our region, so we are quite glad about that. And I think also the plenary in Latin America at the end of the year there are great goals that we are achieving with RDA in our region. There are also 3 points that Lautaro and I were discussing and think is valuable for you to understand what is a referencia and what is the role in a regional level. The governance, the federation as the sustainability of La Referencia. La Referencia is governed by a board of representatives of the different governments. We work as national government level. In the board that are the members of La Referencia, there are all representatives of different ministers or agencies that are the ones who lead the science, technology policies in the different countries. And also the board has a president that is re-elected in 2 years per period. In this moment, the president of La Referencia is the representative of Costa Rica. And in later years was Bianca Amaro, maybe you know she, and before was Patricia Munoz, was the representative of the Chilean Northern. And at the time is Andrea Mora Campos, the president of La Referencia. As a federated network, we are building national services with discovery services, interoperability services, metadata harvesting and enrichment. And each of our national nodes run the platform, and we run a version of the platform at regional level. So we can collect and harvest and share metadata using interoperability. Sorry, this word is quite different for us. Interoperability protocols with other global and regional aggregator services. And we collaborate with other big regional initiatives for publication and diamond access journal as Cielo, Redalic, Latindex, for example. In terms of sustainability, every member of each country make an annual contribution to maintain the management and the technical developments of La Referencia. We are a very short team. We are in the management. There is Lautaro and I, and we have a communication guy that's working on this, working in different platforms for communication our initiative. So we are a very small team, and Red Clara is the one who provides us administrative and financial and legal framework for our development. Now we are looking for external funds to specific developments. For example, we are in the SCOS, we are in the SCOS, how can I say, in the SCOS, in the third round of SCOS, we had a huge finance contribution of France government. So in between others, like Australian libraries and Canadian libraries. So we are looking for financial support, not to sustain La Referencia, but yes, for different new developments that are the key aspect for us. We have some strategic, political and institutional goals that we are working in this moment. When we had the 10 years birthday, we structured the new strategic plan of La Referencia. As I said before, one of strategic goal is to achieve a full political representation of our region. Now we have 10 countries in La Referencia, but there are much more that we want to include in the network. We are maintaining a dialogue and policy coordination for open science at regional and national level. We are integrating education and research network as infrastructure for open science. We are working at pilot level, promoting the use of open science indicators and metrics in research evaluation. We are strongly encouraging non-commercial open access publishing of scientific production. And we are driving a cultural shift in research communities towards open access and research data published and reused. This is in this field we are working. We need the collaboration between La Referencia and RDA. There is a lot of information that our community needs that is in English, and we want to share this information in Spanish and in Portuguese. So the collaboration between RDA and the funds, maybe we can found together to translate all the information and to interpret the different talks, or yes, that's it. In our language is very important, and we are developing more infrastructures and technology tools to support open science best practice as a regional public good. As I said before, I'm not the technical expert. Lautaro is, but if you see the presentation that he made last week, there are more details about that. We have technical goals in La Referencia. The use of the development of persistent identifiers as a public good. It's called DARK. It's a project that we are working with Evict Brazil, and this founded by the SCOS project, as also the usage statistic ecosystem that is founded. The development is founded by the SCOS project, and also the development of the La Referencia open platform that is always is in continuing development. Regarding the possibility of joining the group and working the group, I have to say that I can steal Jill's slide that for us is full representative of what we think, what Jill says in his slide. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks to you. So I don't know if you have, I don't see questions in the chat. I think that we have seen a beautiful illustration of diversity, but also commonalities in a sense. And so what we can do is last time during the, well, what I can say is that I have a message from Lee from Canada, who could not join us tonight. And his message is that he really thinks that the group should go, that we should start the group again, and that he's ready to participate with Alliance Canada, which has also a name in English. And I have also a message from Anwar, who could not participate either tonight. And he says that it would be useful to identify commonalities. And this is why also I speak about commonalities in the middle of diversity. And he was thinking, for instance, about common architectural functionalities for a national data infrastructure. So this kind of suggestions brings us to the GORC point, the Global Open Research Commons. We had the pleasure to have C.J. Woodford with us last time, and it seems that it would be to establish a liaison with a GORC interest group would be interesting. So I participate. There was a session of a GORC groups today, which was yesterday for everybody now, and I participated, and I at some point I said that we understood during our last session that it would be interesting to have a GORC model for national data services, which could also be useful to identify the communalities as proposed by Anwar, and to understand the building blocks, and to allow us to understand where to discuss best practices if we have the building blocks well identified through the GORC. So I think that this liaison with the GORC people, and in particular CG, but GORC interest group, is certainly a good thing. And this afternoon, well, during their session, I cannot say when, depending where you are, the discussion was to have examples of implementation of a GORC model, and I think that the national data services could become a good example, because we would not take all the aspects of a GORC model, but select some, and it's useful to show possible adopters of a GORC model that it's possible to extract what you need, and you don't need to implement everything, but to extract what you need. So we could be a good example. It's a kind of thing which could be done in the group. So I don't know if you have comments at this stage. What thing we can do is to start from Gilles has a slide about possible activities and interest for the interest group. And we added a few things last time, so we can start from there. But before that, please, if you have comments, go on with the comments. We have a quarter of an hour before the end of the session. So we can, you can, of course, if you have comments on what we have heard or what we should do, please go on. Otherwise, yes, go on, Rosie.
Francois, I think it would help me if, when we're thinking about this, we're able to think about what the output that we're striving for would be. And I'll give you an example. Because of the diversity, I think it's very difficult to say this is best practice. This is best practice in this context.
Sure.
So we have to be a little bit careful about that. But on the other hand, when I'm listening to the conversations, in my mind, I'm thinking about what are the big challenges that we're facing in Australia at the moment. And one of the things is the national storage hardware conversation and data retention. Who's responsible for what, when? And so when I've been listening to people's descriptions, and as I mentioned, I went back and listened to the previous session, so I did hear the Canadian description as well, that I think across us, it's very helpful to me to learn what other countries are doing in that storage hardware and retention space. So we've got the federated models, etc. But so what I'm bringing to it is a very tight focus that helps me. Others will have theirs. And I think at the start, it's being able to say, these are areas of interest, and perhaps that's where mapping back to the GORC model helps us, because the diagram has already got particular areas interested. Which of those are relevant for discussions for each country?
Yes, I fully agree. I think that we could, if I read what we discussed last time, we had possible roles for the interest group, and it begins by networking with colleagues from all around the world. And I think it's at the core of what you say. And I have the impression we have a common understanding. It's useful, but you can object if you think, if any of you object, it's a time to object, but I have a feeling we share this interest, and we are already, each of you is networked with bits and pieces elsewhere. This was visible in your presentations, and I think it's networking should be good. And you know, I know that interest groups have to have output, but for me, networking is a sociological output, and RDA is pushing for sociological aspects of data sharing. So I am ready to fight that networking is an output and an acceptable one for RDA in the RDA context. And then the second bullet point we discussed last time was, and proposed by Gilles, was embrace the diversity of the national data services. I lost. Yes, of the national data service landscape. And it's also what you said to introduce the discussion today before the talks. So to understand it better, learn from it, and what we added there last time was work on a national data service work model, which would encompass the diversity. So I think it fits rather well with what you have said. And what we can add is learn from it to be a bit more precise, to identify. Yes, we have sorry, the next bullet point is identification of shared best practices, relevant RDA groups, and relevant RDA recommendations. So you are putting a comment on shared best practices, and I think that it's identification rather of shared, before shared best practices, there is identification of domains of common interest. I write in the notes while I speak, so you can follow what I can show it, but I like to see you also, so you can look at the notes. Domains of common interest, and then shared best practices adapted to the context. You said the challenges, so identify common challenges, you had also domains of common interest and common challenges. Then you said that yes, shared practices, noting that the context is important about the practices. And the idea was really to use the GORC model to understand the building blocks. And I have the impression the people who know a bit about GORC have the same feeling. I don't know, Mikiko, you know GORC very well also. Would you agree with the fact that it would be good to build a GORC model?
I think it makes sense.
Yes. Yes. So I have a feeling that it's, you know, it's one output you were discussing which outputs we could propose. This is one of the possible outputs of a group, to find people interested in building, working, for instance, with Seiji, if he accepts to do it, to go further in defining a GORC model for national data services. And it will probably be, not all the NDSs will fill all the boxes. This is very clear. But as we all know, GORC is not prescriptive, so it's okay. And then so I think relevant RDA groups, we have already the GORC model group. I think that from what I hear, there is the PID. We have a PID interest group, which has a collection of national PID strategies, and I think it's very relevant to what I have heard today. So relevant RDA group, we have EG, GORC, PIDs, and there are many others, I guess. But this will, So this means we will have to map, to perform a mapping.
I have one
Yes.
question. For the case introduction for France, that the second plan sounds great, and what I was wondering is that the second plan in France sounds like that your government aiming to more centralized service by government, or not?
Not really. It's not centralized. It's more like, I don't know how to say that, initiated maybe.
Initiate,
So
right.
the Recherche Data Gov ecosystem, there's one slide I've not shown because this was a short lightning talk, but it's in my presentation as kind of backup slide, and that you can go through it. That says that the governance of the ecosystem is really shared between the different research institutions.
Right.
And this is really something we're working on at the moment. And we sort of, every time we present the ecosystem in France itself, I mean, we explain that it's not a ministry platform. It's not a government ecosystem. I know there's the Gov stuff in the name, like Recherche Data Gov. I mean, it's so because it's from the government. And the reason for that is that just, well, one of the first initiatives by the French government to open data was on administrative data, like data from all kind of institutions, like the statistics stuff, like, and it's called DataGov. So that's why when the platform for research was created, it was named Research Data Gov, Recherche Data Gov. But then it's not a ministry platform. It's not centralized by the government. On the contrary, it's very distributed and spread between the different institutions. So there's political support, but no centralization.
The reason why I'm come up to my mind is because we also have a discussion here as well that how can we make ecosystem happen? It's easy to say, but in practical point of view, for research point of view, nobody really have a space to care about ecosystem. And in infrastructure point of view, yes, to share the system among others, often very beneficial, because so that you can save your time. We do, you don't. The sort of it's a good sort of sharing the task. But on the other hand, decentralizing meet science very well, but often kind of more uniqueness to happen, and the domain-specific issues happen. And then once we want to integrate search, we can't, because the metadata schema is so diverse, etc., etc., etc. So that is just an example. And if we launch this national service level of interest group, perhaps that one approach could be what is national level system and services would economize the e-research world. I'm not sure whether that's interesting to you or just come up to my mind.
So you think, what I understand from what you say is that it would be good to explain the value proposition of national data services in a sense. Because we will have many examples, and to see how we can tell people it's important to do it, and then we can examine the mission. But Gilles, in France, we have other things for high-performance computing, which is not included in Research Data Group, for instance, but it's part of the landscape. And in many of what we have heard, the high-performance computing is somewhere closer to the system. So I think that this means to try to define why the possible missions of National Data Service and the value they bring. Is this a possible aim for the interest group?
Mm.
So I think,
Elsewhere.
yes,
Can I
yes.
chip in? I'm not sure if I'm thinking the same as Miko, but I have been thinking this for a while. Like a look at the history of library catalog development. You had the community had a catalog, national, institutional. Then over the years converged into this one WordCat is like a worldwide catalog of library system, but it's distributed as where nodes can contribute. So I wonder in the research data world, is that ambition should to achieve? Like researchers from each library, they don't need to know what the library book is in Latin America or what other countries, they just go to one system and search for information and all at their fingertips. So the infrastructure is hidden. All these distributed the infrastructure is hidden from them, but they get access to hundreds of catalog system in one interface. So I wondered that is what data service, that kind of ambition to achieve. But it could be started from like a disciplinary collaboration. For example, Rosie said we have 3 pillars. One of them planet. The Gil is talking about they are prioritizing 9 or 8 priority area by biodiversity. For example, is one of them. If Australia researchers, we don't know you have a data repository there, but they could somehow from, whatever the repository they know, then access, these spaces, that your repository have information about these spaces. They could probably combine data, from this continent and that continent and do the research, probably not able to do that before without data. So, yeah, anyway.
No, I think it's typical of the discussions which could be done in the interest group. And I understand also that the ambition of GORC is to promote interoperability between GORCs, although for the moment it's not really at that stage, I would say. So I have added in the notes that interoperability could be a subject also of, and we will have to understand the subject. So we are 3 minutes from the normal end of a meeting. I have a feeling that the feeling of the shared feeling about the interest group is that it would be good to go on in the definition. So I think that the next step would be to have a discussion, but maybe before the next plenary, to go further in the definition of possible outcomes and so on. And my feeling is that it would be good to invite other national data services, because here we have a subset, because we were willing to have a global coverage. And so this is how the NDSs were chosen. It's to have a global coverage. And I think that it would be an idea to have a meeting inviting other national data services which are interested also potentially to participate. And this could probably, so we have this preliminary list of national data services, which is in the notes. And I have a feeling that organizing something in June in the northern countries is a crazy time in the year, because it's before the summer break, so probably somewhere in September. Organizing a discussion meeting in September would be good. So the issue is that we have to prepare, if there is another BoF in Costa Rica, we have to prepare the BoF proposal now. So there will be something which will be a bit vague, and then the tab will come to say, you have to be more precise, and we will say, yes, sir, we will do. We will explain how we will improve the proposal. Is it okay to think about a discussion meeting in September open to any interested?
I think Federico wants to say something.
Yes, yes, I know. I was finishing that and going to Federico. Go on, Federico.
Oh, thank you. For us, will be great. We are not a national node, but we can invite different national nodes. For example, tomorrow at the closing session of the plenary, there will be 3 experience from national nodes: one of Peru, one of Uruguay. 4, sorry, Peru, Uruguay, Brazil, and Chile. They are completely in different levels, but I think there are all their interest cases to invite to this group. So yes. We can afford the responsibility of inviting the different national nodes to the
participate.
Group. Yes, and maybe if you can see the closing session tomorrow, you will have a short overview of 4 different cases.
Yes, I think it's, we know that the closing session will be focused on Latin America and the Caribbean. And thank you. I think it would be very useful if you can help to gather the national data services from your region. We have here in the discussion of last time, the IG will liaise with regional endeavors, and its outcome will be useful for the regional endeavors. And it came from Lautaro's, a comment from Lautaro saying that it helps you to know better the national nodes. And so this is really from his comment that we have written this line in the notes. So I think that it's a good example. And I think that we have also to talk to the EOSC people in Europe. This is clear. And I think Anwar will have to talk with the people from the African Open Science Cloud also. So is it okay to have in mind that we can try to have a discussion in September to prepare a charter for the interest group? So I wrote that, sorry, it's a bit bizarre, but I write while I speak, so it's in the notes, so it's a bit complicated. So it's 02, we are late to close the meeting. Do you have any closing comment?
Only thank you, Francois, and thanks everyone for the effort that's gone into preparing for this meeting. It's a good foundation.
Thank you very much. I really think it will be very interesting to have this group, but we have to find who will be the co-chairs. So think about it too. And I am not from any national data service. I just help Gilles when he asks me, but that's all. So you have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we need co-chairs from different regions, remember. So is it okay for today? We were a small
Thank you,
group,
Francois.
but I think it worked very well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And have a good day.
Goodbye. Have a
Bye
good
bye.
night.
Good day. Good
Bye.
night. Everything.
Good day,
Bye
Rosie.
bye.
Good night.
Ciao.